It is widely held that there are two ways to approach handicapping and betting sports. You can either be top down or bottom up. Which method is better? Which method is easier? And which method is right for you? Stick around. I'm going to explore all of that in the next few minutes. Oh, and if you don't know what top down or bottom up even means, don't worry. I'll explain all of that too. This could have a big impact on your future as a sports bettor. Hi, I'm Jack from Unabated.com. If you're new here, I make content to help make you a better sports bettor. And if you're new here, you might need a little explanation as to what I'm talking about with top down and bottom up. Let's address that first. Top down refers to a method of finding profitable sports bets where you identify a source of truth, which is sharper than wherever you are looking to bet. You establish what the price should be, and then you find the same game priced better elsewhere. You've probably been a top-down consumer at some time in your life. You see a product sold for a certain price nearly everywhere, and then you find it on sale at another retailer and take advantage of that discount. You were price sensitive. Now, when it comes to betting sports, it's similar. A top-down bettor finds a solid source of truth and then looks for the price to be cheaper elsewhere. Cheap enough that when the lines close, they have a wager with some positive expected value. Some of you may be thinking that your source of truth is the guy you follow on Twitter who posts his stone-cold mortal lock of the day. However, that's not how the pros do it. Their source of truth are the sharp sports books, which make the markets as well as maintain the sharpest possible line. Now, would you rather trust the opinion of one random guy on Twitter or the collective hive mind of a sharp sports book that has aggregated the opinions of sharp bettors around the world? So a top-down bettor sees a line move at a sharp sports book and is able to bet that line at a slower sports book elsewhere before they move and create value for themselves. Now, that sounds easy in theory. It's a little harder than that in practice. But essentially, that's all it is. In the past, this used to be called steam chasing or a board cleaning, since you were cleaning off the stale numbers on the betting board. Now, a bottom-up bettor, as the name implies, is somewhat the opposite of a top-down bettor. A bottom-up bettor builds their own opinion of what the line should be. If you've ever said, the Cowboys covering the -3 spread is a great bet, well then congratulations, you've practiced bottom-up betting. Maybe not well, but still bottom-up nonetheless. Of course, bottom-up doesn't necessarily mean a wild guess. You could build an extensive quantitative model to formulate your plays. You could have access to news and information that hasn't been factored into the market yet. There are many ways to be a bottom-up bettor. Let's walk through a couple of examples of both top-down and bottom-up betting to see how each one identifies value in sports betting. First, top-down. Using an odds screen, we look for outliers on price. Now, here's an example from the NBA. Based on some lineup news, the line on a Bulls-Hawks game moved in favor of the Hawks. They went from being a plus 2.5 point underdog to being +1 at some of the sharper sports books in the world. However, you'll notice that FanDuel, DraftKings, and BetMGM were slow to move. Now, is getting plus 2.5 when the proper price should be +1, is that a big enough edge to bet into? Well, with access to tools like the alternate line calculator at Unabated.com, you could find that if the true VIG-free price should be +1 even money, then a plus 2.5 would be priced at -116. Now, since you're betting plus 2.5 -110, and that's better than plus 2.5 -116, you are getting a plus EV bet. You could then quantify your edge, which would be, in this case, plus 2.53%. Once you know your edge, you know how much of your bankroll you should wager. So, by spotting a line that was slow to move, you have created a quantifiable, positive expectation scenario for yourself. Maybe you spot a -6, -115 on an NFL game as a sharp sportsbook moves to -7, -110. Or perhaps you are betting baseball and you can get under 7.5 plus 150 on an alternate line on a game that at a sharp sportsbook is maybe under 8.5 minus 110. These are both examples of using a source of truth in the form of the line at a sharp market making book to find and quantify your edge in betting at other sports books. Now, if you were a bottom-up bettor, you would come to the odds screen with your own projection as to what the line should be. You can also quantify your edge and bet a proportional part of your bankroll. Perhaps you have a model to project the number of rushing yards by Ezekiel Elliott. You think he'll get the ball an average of 16.3 times and rush an average of 90.7 yards. Using tools like the player prop simulator and the props odds screen, both at unabated.com, you simulate your projection and come up with a distribution table that you then go shopping with. You are your own source of truth here. You find an edge, you quantify your edge, and you bet. Bottom up also works for those who maybe aren't as in tune with building a model. There are many bettors out there that are more qualitative in their handicapping than quantitative. They see things that the greater market doesn't see, even if they don't know the exact numbers behind them. A qualitative bottom-up bettor can identify situations where a line is not quite right and bet accordingly. I like to call this seat of your pants handicapping, and well, I guess it puts the bottom in bottom up. In trying to determine which method is better, let's list out some pros and cons of each. First, top down. One of the biggest pros is that it's proven to work. The efficiency of the closing line in major betting markets has been proven over time. Bettors refer to this as closing line value. If you're beating the market, you will profit in the long run. Now next, it's also scalable. Using top-down can be applied to a variety of betting markets. Some markets are stronger than others due to the efficiency of the market, but for the most part, your method of practicing top-down won't change. Top-down also requires very little domain knowledge about the sport. You don't need to know how the tight end matches up against the inside linebacker. You don't need to know the run-pass splits of a 12 personnel offense versus a cover 2 defensive set. In fact, you don't even need to know the players' names. With top-down, you are just a betting machine. When your source of truth says there's value there, you bet it. Ideally, you'll be betting frequent enough that the edge will manifest over time. Now, conversely, top-down does have some drawbacks. Mainly, top-down is very time-intensive and requires tools. Value in sports betting moves quickly. To practice top-down effectively, you're going to need to know what the price is at your source of truth in real time. You're also going to want to know what the prices are at other sports books you have access to. Speed is essential. You need a fast real-time odds screen to work with. Also, top-down is less effective for less efficient markets. For instance, if you're betting player props in just about any sport, there simply aren't market-making books with most player props. They can be shaped with sharp action, but often books just run off sharp action rather than try to book and adjust based on it. This makes prop markets far more conducive to bottom-up betting. Another downside to top-down is some sports books won't like you. They feel exposed when people pick off stale lines or beat them to a line move. That causes them to act vindictively to top-down bettors. Whether it be limits in how much you can bet or just not taking any of your action at all, you'll lose some sportsbook accounts the more you practice top-down betting. Top-down is also not sexy. Now, of course, most sports bettors are familiar with the concept of not being sexy. However, what I mean by this is you won't dazzle your friends with your amazing pick prognostication prowess. In fact, you'll probably annoy them by always talking about how you got a better line than they did on the game. If you're into sports betting because you want to impress people, top-down might not be for you. Of course, if you're into sports betting because you want to make money, it is absolutely a viable path. Okay, so what about bottom-up though? Well, there's plenty of pros and cons here as well. The first benefit is control. You control when you do the analysis and how you do it. If you're doing a quantitative, numbers-based model, you could largely be doing the majority of the heavy lifting in the off-season and then just have to run your model daily or weekly to find the bets. Bottom-up is also stronger for more inefficient markets, like I mentioned with prop bets. Bottom-up is also useful for one-off markets where there aren't many sportsbooks offering a line for the same wager. For instance, derivative markets like alt lines or futures markets. Finding a market maker for every line you encounter can be tough. Much easier to come up with your own source of truth. Another area that bottom-up excels at is origination. Now, in general, a well-run sportsbook would value originators, especially if the relative cost of that sportsbook paying to gain knowledge from you is minimal. Now, the major downside to bottom-up is that it does require a lot of resources to do well. There is definitely a learning curve to be able to do it. You need a fair amount of education or domain knowledge. Bottom-up will also be harder to quantify your edge with. Many times it's a battle of who is less wrong, you or the bookmaker. I hope you're finding this video helpful. If you are, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up to like this video. That lets YouTube know that this is the quality content that other people should be aware of. Thank you. Okay, now in the last few minutes, did one of these methods appeal to you more than the other? If you're less of a rabid sports fan and more of someone who is into sports betting because you want to make money, top-down can be very appealing. You get to quantify your edge a lot of the time. You can grow your bankroll through proven concepts like Kelly staking with fairly strong accuracy. Your actual value will slowly align with your expected value over time. Whereas if you are someone who gets satisfaction from creating or building something, a bottom-up approach might be more appealing. You don't have to rely on someone else to find your edge. You blaze your own trail and beat markets on your own. But then again,
¿Por qué no los dos?
See, the best part about this is there is no single right way to win at sports betting. You can be both a top-down and a bottom-up bettor. You could be top-down in an efficient sport like the NFL and be bottom-up in a softer sport like WNBA or a prop market. You could be top-down all through the week as you watch the screen for an edge to appear, and then be bottom-up on the weekend when you want to enjoy some time away from the betting screen and just want to toss in some bets according to your own model. Anyone who tells you that only top-down or only bottom-up is the way to win isn't being completely honest with you. In fact, winning at sports betting goes beyond just top-down and bottom-up. If you've been watching my videos for the past 2 years, well, first, thank you. But you would know that I was telling you to take advantage of promos and bonuses wherever you can. That was a viable way to beat sports. And if this is new to you, well then go back and watch some of those older videos in the 5 Ways series where I talked about 5 ways to build a better bankroll out of nothing, or 5 ways to work smarter, not harder. Oh, and do me a favor, subscribe to this channel. You've been missing a lot in the last 2 years. Don't miss anymore. You can do it right now in that corner. Okay, anyway, promos and bonuses are starting to dry up a bit. It was an unsustainable approach by operators, and it was inevitable to eventually subside. So if you've been relying on just promos and bonuses, it's time to explore some other options in beating this racket. Taking a top-down or a bottom-up approach might be right for you. Or perhaps you've tried either top-down or bottom-up, and you're ready for a different way of doing things. Helping you get where you are going on your journey to being a sharper sports bettor is why we created Unabated. We have the tools and resources to help assist both a top-down and a bottom-up bettor. For the top-down bettor, we have one of the fastest odds screens available on the market. You get real-time odds from key market-making books such as Pinnacle, Bookmaker, Circa, and Deck Prism. There's also real-time feeds to the popular US sportsbooks that you're going to be looking to pick off. DraftKings, FanDuel, Superbook, WinBet, plenty more. Now, integrated with all these odds are tools to help you quantify your edge and identify value in each market we cover, as well as into the derivative bets like alt lines and partial game lines like halves and quarters. We have all of this for both pre-game odds as well as the fast-moving in-game odds. So if you want to win as a top-down bettor, you'll have to be fast, and our tools and our user interface are built to be fast and efficient. Now meanwhile, if you aspire to be a sharper bottom-up bettor, we've got great resources for you as well. We have an extensive video library of step-by-step tutorials in building different types of sports betting models. If you're not the build-it-yourself type, we have an NFL season simulator to help you turn basic power ratings into quantifiable bets to look for on our future screen. And if you like betting player props, we have a great new NFL player prop simulator and odds screen. You can shop prop bets across multiple books and simulate player performance using importable stats from around the web. Top down or bottom up, Unabated has you covered. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope it has stirred some ideas in your head for your continuing journey. Now, top down, bottom up, or both, it's up to you to decide. And until next time, go out there and win some wagers.